Yo, what's up, bingers? It's Dave, and today I'm doing something slightly different. Instead of talking about comic books per se, I'm going to talk to you about books on comics. Now, nowadays, something like that's pretty common. I think a lot of you guys seen this or might have picked this up yourself when Action Comics 1000 came out. This is a great book, good printing quality, stuff like that. Check out this one I got at Ollie's. For 13 bucks is a good coffee table book. You know, your friends come over, you have that on the table, you go, yeah, I like Superman. Got a problem with it? There's another one I actually got at Ollie's as well. Superman from the 40s. You get 18 old comics for $3.99, the price of a normal floppy these days. But back to this, because this is what I want to show you. What you got to understand is this thing lived on my bookshelf. Because back in the day, comics were something that, you know, you didn't really talk about or you kept hidden. So, like, if you had guests coming over, your mom would tell you, you know, you might have some comics sitting on the kitchen table or on your floor, sitting out on your bedroom or like that. She'd tell you to clean up these comics, to get rid of them. But this thing has been in my house as long as I can remember. It's something of a family heirloom. And it was on the shelf there with the other reference materials. So you had the Encyclopedia Britannica and a dictionary and, you know, copies of like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Treasure Island or something like that. That's where this book hung out. And you would figure there, Superman from the 30s to the 70s, you would figure this came out in 79, right? When we flip this open, see if we can find the, if you remember your Roman numerals, this book was published in 1971. So that's kind of a trip back. Look what I got sitting in here. 1997 seems a while ago, huh? Think of 1971. And I'll read you this introduction real quick there. For all of those who have been stirred to breathless excitement by the daring exploits of Superman, the comic strip's mightiest hero, here is a rare collector's treasury of classic adventures spanning 40 years and never before published in book form. Superman from the 30s to the 70s is a thrilling journey into the past, a stunning documentary of Superman's life from his first appearance in Action Comics in 1938 to the hit committed Superman of the 70s. Here are all the memorable firsts in Superman's history. The first story that revealed Superman's origins, the first time Lois Lane suspected Clark Kent of being Superman, the first appearance of Red Kryptonite, and many, many more. The book traces Superman's undisputed reign as champion of the comic strip in 28 full stories, including the first ever written and 50 covers, revealing the fascinating ways in which the character of Superman has changed with the times. This extraordinary volume highlights his early fight against crime, his Herculean feats of strength, and his unprecedented chivalry, and contrasts them with his involvement with the issues of today. It is only fitting that this long idolized American hero is now the subject of a spectacular motion picture. They were in the works of, because Superman the movie didn't come out till 78, so they were in the works of making that come out, and as, you know, a forward there in the beginning. But when was the last time you sat here and did this? Read the original Superman comic. Just before the doomed planet Krypton exploded to fragments, a scientist placed his infant son within an experimental rocket ship, launching it towards Earth. When the vessel reached our planet, the child was found by an elderly couple, the Kents. Look, Mary, a child. The poor thing, it's been abandoned. The infant was turned over to an orphan asylum, where it astounded the attendants with its feats of strength. We couldn't let that sweet child out of our mind. We've come to adopt him, if you'll permit us. I believe it can be arranged, and he thinks to himself, whew, thank goodness they're taking him away before he wrecks the asylum. Now this is very important. The loving guidance of his kindly foster parents was to become an important factor in the shaping of the boy's future. Now listen to me, Clark. This great strength of yours, you gotta hide it from people, or they'll be scared of you. But when the proper time comes, you must use it to assist humanity. As the lad grew older, he learned to his delight that he could hurdle skyscrapers, leap an eighth of a mile, raise tremendous weights, run faster than a steamline train, and nothing less than a bursting shell could penetrate his skin. What the? This is the 6th hypodermic needle I've broken on your skin. Try again, Doc. The passing away of his foster parents greatly grieved Clark Kent, but it strengthened the determination that had been growing in his mind. Clark decided he must turn his titanic strength into channels that would benefit mankind. And so was created Superman, champion of the oppressed, the physical marvel who had sworn to devote his existence to helping those in need. And you see, there's not a very big explanation of why Krypton was destroyed. There's no explanation of the origin of his costume. He just has it. But look at the important parts that they put in there. And I have some things marked off to show you. Look, the first time Superman as Superboy met Lois Lane. We also have in here, let me flip to this. Oh, they, when they had the cartoon coming out, they actually addressed that. Let's find some other stuff. It's the first time he fights Mr. Mixoplex, or however you pronounce it. Oddly enough, my father, and that's one thing about Superman. When I was a kid reading comics, my older brothers read Marvel, so I read Marvel as well. And Marvel was kind of like the hip comic company at the time. DC kind of had that stigma of being your dad's comics. But I remember when Superman died in '92, I believe it was, and they reported on the news and everything. My dad actually went to the comic shop because I was in school at the time. He went to the comic shop and got himself a copy of The Death of Superman. And, I hadn't heard the guy talk about Superman that I remember ever in my life. But, he had this big discussion of who was the strongest Superman villain of all time. And his story was actually Mr. Mixoplex. And what other stuff do we have in here? Kind of the retelling of the origin, which I actually want to show you in the other book because this is black and white. There's some covers. We have some other covers in here. In the 60s. This one's the 50s covers. 60s covers. There's some interesting stuff here in the end. Oh, in this storyline, scientist is experimenting with kryptonite. And something goes wrong and Superman flies in with this lead dome that he had made. But he gets blown back. And look, he gets blown through the air and he's laying there on the dirt. And what happens is the explosion has changed all the kryptonite on Earth just to ordinary iron, so it couldn't bother him anymore. But if we flip ahead, remember how he's laying there, he's like, even as Clark ponders new complications, a blazing sun beats upon the desert, upon a figure in the sand, and then it stirs ever so slowly. It's a thing created from soil and rock, and a burst of raw energy cast in the mold of Superman, and it lives like some creature. It plots towards the distant mountains, and towards the villages and towns and cities beyond, moving slowly, relentlessly, to a terrible destiny. And this has got to be from the early 70s right here, because we're at the end of the book. There's some other interesting stuff on, Superman gets sucked from his time. Look at that, Superman, you're dead, dead, dead. He gets sucked into the future, so basically a class can study him, and he's there with General George Custer and Presidents Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. And he figures it out and is able to escape and everything, but I thought this part was interesting. Later, as Superman switches to Clark, Washington and the others I met were from our history. Were they from our history or from the history of that twin Earth? I'll never know. Whatever the answer, it's great to be alive and well, back in my own era, in my own world. But somewhere in another corner of time and space, my double, Superman 3, lies dead, a hero, forever enshrined. So, look, kind of interesting because he didn't die and look, even back then in the 70s, they had like alternate Earths, a future of a parallel world, a world like our own, but another dimension. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I wanted to show you this book a little bit. Again, I recommend getting this if you live near an Ollie's and you're able to. It says really good paper in here. You can kind of tell the thickness of that there. We'll just kind of look at these classic covers. listen to the Superman. Oh, that's an interesting thing too. If you go to YouTube, you're on YouTube right now, and when you're done watching this video, type in Superman radio show and look for like the first 9 episodes. And in the radio show, when Kal-El's little space capsule arrives on Earth, Superman emerges fully grown adult and already donning his Superman outfit. So, and I wonder if that started any arguments in the schoolyard, because maybe not every kid had read, you know, either Action Comics or Superman comics, like the first issue where they explain his origins. So, and it's kind of like how the movies are now, where the normies know more about the characters from the movies or the TV shows compared to the, you know, the original canon of the comic books. And I figure more kids would be able to listen to the radio show. And Superman's always lifting machinery. I watched a video on that. The theory was that you know, people felt, because we were transversing from like the agricultural age to the mechanical age, and people felt like they were being pushed aside by these machines. So it was always important that Superman, they showed him, he's always punching or lifting or throwing some type of mechanical device to show that the, you know, human, you know, well, I guess he isn't human, but like how muscle and everything was more important than this is also, I wanted to show you something in here. That's in that original book that I showed you, but in here they retell the origin of Superman. This is, I believe, is from 1948. The interesting thing in here is that, you know, they kind of elaborate more on Jor-El, his father, and Krypton exploding and stuff like that. And it says, and Jor-El's trying to warn him, and suppose your theory were true, what could we do? And he says, we build giant rocket ships like this model and migrate to a world with an atmosphere like ours, the planet Earth. And this guy laughs, we have observed Earth through our astro telescopes. They are thousands of eons behind us, mentally and physically. Why, they do not even possess X-ray vision. So even like 10 years after the origin of Superman, they're still tweaking things because, you know, as we know Superman and Krypton now, it's the environment that gives him his superpowers. But in this, it was part of him being just an alien in general. On Krypton, everybody had X-ray vision. And again, if you listen to the radio show, they could jump just like Superman could in the original stories. And isn't it interesting how originally Superman couldn't, we all know that, he couldn't fly. He could just jump large distances and stuff like that. But they're always changing and tweaking the characters. And that's something to take in consideration while we're... Now, join me next time. We're going to keep the Superman theme going. I want to read you, this is a really cool story under here. The daring new series, The Secret Origin of Bruce Superman Wayne. So, I appreciate all you guys watching. If you could, click subscribe. I like more that you watch. I'm not too big on actual subscribers or anything like that. But I would appreciate if you guys could leave comments down below, you know, all that YouTube stuff. And until next time, I'll see you in the back issues.